Brackinator. You think you want it. You don't. Should have said that to him. Also, it's sad news, of course. BDG has disbanded. World 4th, the other sponsored competitor in the Race to World First, has called it a ending. Big sad. I haven't read the article yet, but another Titan has fallen in the World of Warcraft Race to World First scenario. They've been around forever. Let's see what Losey had to say. I never got to meet Losey, I don't think. Obviously, I worked with BDG a little bit because they always were co-partners, even when we did the method stuff and later with Echo. So we always had the BDG. BDG is American Guild, but we had their... they co-streamed with Echo and stuff like that. BDG is Big Dumb Guild. They were sponsored by Golden Guardians. Yeah, let's see what he has to say. I haven't read it through. I thought I'd wait till now. Some of you may have noticed we haven't really done anything since our kill 2 months ago. Some of this time has been for a break. Some of are considering which direction to go in the future. And some of it has just been me dragging my feet. After putting a little over 9 years of my life into running this guild from 2014, I'm announcing the disbanding of BDG as a hardcore Race to World First guild. A couple of the bigger reasons for this all kind of work together. A decline in leadership, both in quality and quantity. This has been a recent problem, but I definitely don't feel the same level of desire I did back in Castle and Sanctum days where I was excited to do work. It's not fair to say raiding became an obligation for me, but the passion and desire was gone. I could have done better. Couple that with having to change out basically my entire officer team, ouch, twice in the past year. Business partners stepping away and high amounts of stress and anxiety I've been feeling since Castle. I'm left with little motivation to continue this other than inertia. It doesn't feel right for me to give my guys anything short of my best. Yeah, Race to World First needs money these days. It's the part I don't like about it, but it does. Losing your officer team twice, that's grim. Losing core players each tier to either retirement, burnout, or taking offers from the top 3 as they should. Yeah. Regardless of the quality of their replacements, the process slowed us down and created a sense of perpetual rebuild, or the feeder guild syndrome, that gave the guild something of an identity crisis. Anyone who's been here for even a year knows what I mean, and it sucks. This just isn't something that most core raiders on roster want to do again for the 3rd time. Yeah. It's hard, and it happens at every level. This isn't I'm sure many of you at some point, I imagine if you've been in a guild that's been around for a while, have at some point felt like a bit of a feeder guild. Your guys are just like, I'm moving on. I'm going to bigger and better things. Like, it sucks because if you're in the leadership position... I mean, it happened to me a couple of times, but the biggest one was my vanilla days. Losing Nupss is a big one. Losing Nupss to the top guild on the server, amongst losing our fellow... I wish, honestly, though, I look back at it, I wish I had not had the misplaced desire to make a guild that clearly was not capable of doing it the best in the world. I think there's a point where... Hopefully most of you have realized this with your WoW guild, your early WoW guilds. Let me put it this way. Your early first WoW guild is these guys are never going to be a mythic raid guild, right? Or whatever. It's not going to happen. They might have desires, wishes, hopes, and dreams, but you know it's not going to happen. And if you have aspirations to do that and you're capable of doing it, you know it's not going to happen. And in that case, you need to move on. And you need to change homes. Like, if you want to do that, if you're like, I'm kind of fine with our progress, I would like to raid Mythic, but it's not going to happen, but I love these guys, that's fine too. Like, no one says you need to constantly go up the ladder. It's a video game. But it's not nice when you lose those players and we need to find other people. We have a tab out of the bag. It's just around the corner. Some people trade. Even, I swear to you, when I was guild leading, when I was the leader of that guild and the raid leader, losing Nupss and Salenti and some other players who were all being sucked up by the top guilds, I just still believed, like, and not like questioning belief, I mean a fervent belief that I could get these guys to be good. I truly believed it with like all my fucking heart. I was like, I can get these guys to be good. I can get them through Blackwing Lair. I can get them through it. They can do it. As long as they show up. all the same time, we were constantly like, we need to go back to Molten Core and re-gear everybody. I think the snowball effect of you've got like the core players who are done with that content and are ready for the next thing, but they're not good enough, right? You can pretty much drag a monkey through Molten Core, even in vanilla, and give them all the gear. And then you've got the new players who are replacing your good players who got you there, who would need all the Molten Core gear again. And then those other players who have all the gear are asking to come on alts. And essentially you ended up running, even though it's your main raid, you end up running an alt raid, essentially, where everybody in the 40-man roster needs all the gear again. And so you just keep going round this washing machine of life of just gearing and gearing and gearing. Lose players, gear the new ones. Well, the other players want to get gear on their other characters because they don't need anything from this raid, so I'm going to do it again. And you can't afford to lose those players, so you let them come on alts because you don't want them to leave the guild, because if you lose any more people, then the guild's going to fall apart and it's just going to be a nightmare. That happens a lot. Loss of sponsorship has a lot to do with the above points as well. This mostly ties to the first point of us not doing enough internally to secure our future, but pretty obviously the scene requires money that just doesn't exist here anymore. It makes it hard for anyone to justify the time commitment outside of extreme passion, which frankly speaking, most people lose in about 2 tiers. Yeah, it does need money. It does. And sponsoring a WoW guild is... frankly, the fact it exists at all is beyond belief compared to sponsoring a normal esports team, which has a roster of about 4 to 5 players. You're trying to sponsor like 30 players. Try to keep them on some sort of salary. Analysts, workers all need paying. All that kind of stuff. Like, it's just an extraordinary ask of any sponsor to be... I'm amazed it exists at all. I mean, Echo isn't like hard sponsored by one. Like, you know, obviously Team Liquid supports Liquid. Echo does it with external sponsors per event. But I mean, it's such a disheartening prospect for any sponsor to look at a WoW guild. So we have an event every now and again, and we need to pay 30 people. Or we can look at something like a CSGO team or a League of Legends team, which has like 7 people. Also has prize pools, massive money to be made in tournaments, plays more regularly. Like, the counter to it doesn't work. There is money to be made, absolutely, otherwise it wouldn't exist at all. There's absolutely money to be made. But it's not exactly the tastiest thing at the buffet, is it? The return on investment is so much higher for Echo compared to literally anyone else for sponsors. I mean, without going too much into it, because obviously there's, I have a lot of trust and know a lot of stuff about this, but Echo's system works very, very well for them, providing... I mean, I've spoken to Echo about this. Like, Echo does very, very well, providing that Blizzard make a good raid tier. Right? Because Echo makes all of its money on the Race to World First in order to provide for the players and provide to pay for the production and pay for the show. That all that revenue comes from the Race to World First event itself, right? So if we get Aberrus, which is like 4 days and not very good, and so viewership is in the toilet, like comparative over the course of like 3 weeks, like you had in Sepulchre or something, then they're kind of hard fucked when that happens. Like, I'm pretty sure Echo would have been in real disastrous trouble if, like, financially, if Methuzahla was a piss poor raid. Because it would have been, if Methuzahla would have been like a 4-day raid again, I think Echo would have been like, oh, fuck me. What the fuck are we going to do here? This is bad. And rightfully so. Like, we can't rely on this. This is not happening. As for what happened this tier, I think we always knew a rebuild was going to be rough. I thought Aberrus was going to be a rough rebuilding tier with all the stuff we endured post-Vault. Key players retiring, new officers, handful of people leaving a month before the tier. Oof, that's horrible. But we somehow pulled a world 4th out of that. Good job. It seemed like it was feasible to match that performance or at least get close, so that's where the expectations goal was set. After we realised we were not playing up to this standard, early Smoldy Boy, that kind of set us on a path that spiraled down into poor play and attitudes we had to fight through primarily. When players tilt, when the tilt happens, rather than just fighting the mechanics. Yeah, internal fighting over fighting the mechanics, man. I am proud we stuck it through all that, though, and finished the tier. I think we would have felt significantly worse to end halfway through, which looked like a real possibility at one point. Till is hard. Till is really hard. And there's nobody who's immune to it. Even the best of the best of the best are not immune to the team tilting. And when it happens, steering that ship back on course, not fucking easy. Not fucking easy at all. And I have to give massive respect here to Scripe. Scripe will push through it, and he knows what his team is capable of, and he will get them there. And I think the best example was probably Tindril, where like Mirez was so fucking tilted at that point, he'd like logged out of the game and was like, I think openly said to them, dudes, I'm going back to the hotel. I've had enough. Like, I'm so fucking done. Until Scripe was like, we go again. All right, we go again, and they did it. We go again. We keep going. We could do this. We could do it. There's also much to improve, looks like. Noggy wrote said something about it when he left Echo. Yeah, I haven't spoke to Nogger about it. But I think Noggy was upset for a while. But clearly, I mean, it's... again, I'm not putting words in Echo or Noggy's mouth, because I don't know the details between the two. It's none of my business. But Echo is more professional these days, more... over the last couple of years, more professional and focused and determined. And they've lost some good players along the way to that. And I think anybody who's been there as long as, say, Noggy has, might not like that. That's my interpretation of what happened on. Is like, I don't really like this structure. But the structure clearly works, right? The structure works, and the team's doing well. As a team, the team's doing extremely well. I don't think it helps that certainly players like Noggy, who are phenomenally good, extremely clever at what they do, have built wonderful things for the team over the years and got them through a lot of stuff, were benched a lot. Noggy wasn't in for a lot of fights over the last couple of tiers that I remember. And that sucks overall. It's like, how many world firsts does Noggy have under his belt? A lot. And Echoes and Liquid are the same, are at a point where they could be benching those players. And that's hard. That's hard. Especially if you put the effort in. Think about how much effort you put into raiding, then magnify it by a million to understand what goes into Echo and Liquid's preparation. And then you don't even get to play, right? And you have players like Perfecto, who has... I think now Roger Brown has stepped down. I think Perfecto is the most highly decorated raider on the planet, I think. And he missed out on 2 tiers because weapons didn't drop. And Kush got them instead. So you're talking about somebody with like 14 or 15 world firsts who has been consistent and bang on every time, and he's benched for 2 raids, right? I don't know what Roger's going to be doing. They tried it out this tier. I mean, the internal structure of Echo, I'm not privy to, right? I talked to the guys a lot. I talked to Scripe this week. I talked to Roger last week. We talk a lot. But how they run Echo is none of my business. So whether they will, whether Roger will stay out, I don't know. I kind of don't think Roger... My personal feeling on it, and I've said this to Roger, is I don't think it's time for Roger to step out. I've seen Roger, even in his boomer years, do things and get the team through things that would ordinarily wipe them. And I have seen that right up until the very end. But the problem is Roger is so fucking good. The sad thing is Roger Brown is... unless you're like a giga hyper sweaty nerd, like I am about WoW in a lot of ways, even to this day, it's hard to recognize just how fucking good that guy is, because it's annoying. It's really annoying. And all we see is the memes where he can't install his weak auras because he's old as fuck, and like Mirez has to come and do it for him on his PC because he's like, dude, I don't know what the fuck this is. I don't know how to make it work. I don't care. I just want to shoot my bow and kill the things, and I'll think of ways around it. But he's such a tactical genius that he does do things, and you see it more with Final Fantasy Savages and Ultimates, I guess. Let Roger cook is a meme for a reason. Because he does see things and he sees ways around things that you don't think about, and he can direct people, which is why we ended up with Team Roger versus Team Scripe carrying the tier sets. Like, watching Roger do his thing is great. The problem is Roger wants to play a lot and still can play. So I know through the heroic splits. I don't think I've ever seen Roger as bored ever as he was during that. Like, it was very strange while we were casting and we have a big glass window that looks out onto the players, is you just see Roger just milling around because there's nothing for him to do. And he's like, I just want to be in and playing and doing my things. And they had to work. I know Mirrors and Scripe worked hard to make sure that Roger didn't even have a possibility of playing, because they knew if there was the chance, he would be like hardcore gearing a character, getting it ready. He would be zerging M+ all day, every day. He would do everything in his power to be ready to go. And they'd be like, we need him outside this tier. We need him. And it worked. They did claim the world first, and Roger was a big part of that. But I know Roger still wants to play, so we'll see. I do want to express my serious gratitude for everybody who's been through this guild. All 295 players. Wow. If I've learned anything in the past 2 months of not really playing WoW, it's the people that I'll miss the most, more so than the game. Big true. I think everybody feels this. It's usually not the game that gets people to quit. It's the people disappearing. Especially if you play the game habitually as you log in to chat with your friends more than anything else. I just want to play with the team. Ultimately, you're all what made this special. Feel free to DM me if you want to talk about the old days, high points or low points. Anything from the US 200 days and early WOD, or one of our insane world first, Vectis, or Desolate Host, or Fated Sire, woohoo. Fun games of League or Tabletop, sure. I'd also like to shout out all the officers in leadership that have been in the project with me. I think you're all some of the best gaming friends I've made. I love you, challenge me, and push me. A huge thank you to all the people who worked at Golden Guardians, to our analyst team. And lastly, I want to thank the community. As for myself, I have committed to a future direction yet, in-game or out of game. I still think there's a lot of passion in me for this game and the community. I just need a few months off to figure it out after redlining it for 3 years straight. Maybe I'll be part of the Race the World First elsewhere. Maybe I'll reform with some friends as a chiller nighttime guild. Ah, yes! Enter the next Bald, Fat and Ugly, the retirement home for raiders. We'll kill the boss. Yes, I can press my buttons. Hey, it's fun. Losey, if you ever see this, it's really fun. If you can find that retirement home that's full of all like old top world raiders and shit like that, it's really nice. But it's an experience. It's an experience. So I recommend it. I recommend it. I had a great time. Any ex-raiders that made it this far, hit me up. Oh, well...